Thank you, Aaron, for those very warm remarks, and very happy for this event today and what this means for Florida State University. I want to thank all of our speakers that have made time to come down and invest this time with us. Analytics, this is an exciting time not only to be in analytics, but to be in the business world. So thank you today for investing the time to come listen to our speakers. We have some amazing storytellers. That's one of the things I've learned about data analytics, is that it's important to be a good storyteller. So Allie, thank you so much again for making the time. Tampa Bay Lightning, right? So
yes.
They're doing pretty good, aren't they?
Yes.
Yes.
We got off to a little bit of a rocky start, but that was good. We needed it after last season, so happy about it. And thank you guys so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So Allie, talk to me a little bit. I know we've had a chance to get to know each other a little bit in a quick amount of time. I've sensed your passion for analytics. Tell us a little bit about how you got to the Lightning, and I understand this is your dream job. So why don't you just give us some more insight into that, please?
So I did not necessarily take the most traditional path into analytics. As was mentioned, I was actually a philosophy major with a concentration in psychology. So I think the first lesson to be had here is that you don't have to necessarily take that quantum physics path to get where you need to be. I always wanted to be in professional sports, so long-winded answer. I don't even know where to start, actually. I guess I went into school in econ, and I was kind of candidly bored.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Columbia University in New York City.
It's a pretty good school.
Yeah, it was pretty good, you know. Went in econ, and I was kind of bored. That sounds really weird. Not that it's boring. It wasn't for me. I always say I picked the wrong time to rebel against my parents. But that's what I decided to do. Long story short, what happened, I started in PR and event planning in New York City when I got out of school, working for professional athletes with nonprofit foundations. Two of my favorite things. I really love sports and I love nonprofits.
Yeah.
So it was like an awesome pairing. However, after a few years, I really needed to get out of New York City. I was ready to leave, go somewhere else, which is how I ended up in Nashville, working in I was on the marketing team, helping position selling sports to clients. So I worked with the ESPNs, the NBC Sports Networks, the FS1s, and such with helping our sales teams sell sports advertising. Thought I was going in to sell college football, and I was like, this is easy, we're in the South. And my first assignment was golf. I know nothing about golf, candidly, I don't really like golf, so I was like, how am I supposed to do this? And that's when the market research side came in, and I fell in love. It was, okay, why are you spending all this money to be in college football in the South when your market, you're selling Rolex, your market is high end, and that's the audience for golf. So somebody watching the Golf Channel is X times more likely to make 100,000 plus. And so it was getting into like the data and realizing that it's storytelling with data. And what I love about sports is there's passion. Like sports is a passion sell, period. So when you're able to pair passion with actual data, that's where like the magic comes alive. And what was really cool about it was, again, I was working over the Southern Division, and all of a sudden we were realizing we're not selling golf. My market, Tallahassee was a market, Panama City was a market, Savannah, Charleston, and they weren't selling golf. And it was like, wait, what? And we went from not selling golf to selling out golf. NASCAR was another one, the World Cup, and it was all of a sudden I was so pumped. But then because I was on the marketing team, my boss was like, you're getting a little too into the data. I need you to pump the brakes. Like, this is supposed to be marketing. And that's where I realized that my passion really was in the market research side. So someone from the business intelligence side was like, Allie, like, you do a great job, but you need more. And that's kind of where I evolved into where I am at the Lightning.
So did the Lightning, when you were going through that experience, tell me a little bit more about the Lightning, how you heard about that opportunity, and then how long you've been there.
So I'm from Tampa, I grew up there, and I would fly home. So my dad, long story short, really wanted a son. He got an only child, he got a daughter. So I grew up going to sports games with him. That's kind of how we really bonded. It's actually how I got really into wanting to be in professional sports. To make a very long story short, when I was really young, we were at a Bucks game together. And I got really upset, and I was like, and he was like, what's up? And I was like, I'm just really upset. I'm never going to live the American dream. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, I'm never going to get to catch a touchdown in the NFL, and it's just not fair. And I'll never forget, like, this is a true story. He said, Allie, but you can work in professional sports, and you can change it from the front office. And for some reason, that stuck with me, and I was just, from that day on, determined. So being able to, like, attribute that back to him is, like, an awesome thing. So when I moved, I lived in New York City for 7 years, in Nashville for 3, but I would always fly home. Like, when the Lightning were in the playoffs, I'd fly home for a game each round and go to the games with my father. And I'd always, like, dabble and look at what was going on, what openings there were. And there was a business intelligence manager opening for a while, but I never pulled the trigger because I didn't feel like updating my resume and those types of things. Finally read the book, Eat That Frog. Highly recommend it because I read the book and then I finally ate the frog, updated my resume, and applied. But I went home. Sorry, I talk really fast.
No, you're
and then
good,
I run
and
out of water.
I'll try to cue you up for that. So
So I went home, I went to a game. It was just so, like, electric that finally I was like, okay, tomorrow I updated my resume, wrote this psychotic cover letter. I mean, insane. I don't know why they even reached out. But the man who ended up becoming my boss wrote me back and said, I'm really sorry, this position's closed. We filled it a month ago. It shouldn't have even been posted. And in all fairness, I had no business applying for it. I didn't know what half the words were. I've never heard of Python. I don't know what an SQL was, like, whatever. But, like, half of it, I was like, I could do this. The other half, I can fake it. But he said, based on your cover letter and your resume, there's a job that we've never had before. We just created it. We haven't even posted it, but I think you could be a really good fit. Take a look and see if you're interested. I'll get you set up with HR. And that was what was the consumer and partnership analyst role that I started in, and I read it, and honestly, I was like, this is a real job. Are you, what? And I, like, cried. I was like, this is my dream job, but this has to be a joke. This can't be real. And it was, like, the most amazing thing ever. It was back when, I mean, now 4 years ago, and things like that didn't exist. It was actually the first one in the NHL, and now it's crazy because, like, they're now just starting to create it at other clubs. So it was really cool to get that opportunity, and I attribute it back to being at Comcast Spotlight with that market research. And yeah, so now this is my 4th season with the team, and it was, yeah, it's good.
Well, good. I'm going to speak for a little bit, give you a chance to drink some water there. So just thinking about that title, Market Intelligence Manager, and the fact that 4 years ago, that's an eternity in analytics. I think about where I was 4 years ago. It was before I was here. I've been here about 2.5 years, and it's been a blessing to be able to help be a part of the College of Business and the investments we're making in analytics and intelligence. Let's talk a little bit about, and I'd be curious to know, so like you talked about some of the challenges you had with data and with your employer prior to coming to the Lightning, to the fact that you had somebody say you're too much into the data, which I think we hear that a lot, and that's where the storytelling also comes in too. How do you go about gathering your data and knowing how that data, how you want that data to go into your story?
I think that having that struggle, and at my last job, has really, really helped me here, because understanding how to position data to non-data minded people at my last job has really helped me in a position here where I'm really working closely with a partnership team and a sales team. So I already understand that, like, anything I do has to be very, very simplified, so that, because if they don't understand it, they're not going to tell it to their clients, or they're going to say it wrong, and then it gets confusing, and then all of a sudden we don't look like a trustworthy team. So having that prior knowledge has really helped me be able to very much so simplify to a point where you can share that story. It's something that I preach to my team, and it's something that I would say, if you're trying to go into data and analytics, it's something that can really set you apart. It's something that I still notice a lot of people really struggle with, because a lot of times it's that people have that right brain or that left brain, and it's hard to pair the two. So there's a lot of people really, really smart who can look at a data set and interpret it, but being able to translate it to people who don't understand it is going to set you apart. And that's a huge skill set that I think is glazed over a lot. A lot of times people are, trying to brag about all the analytics skills they have, but you have to remember, most of the times you're not just working with other analytics departments. You're going to be translating this data to people who don't necessarily understand it. So
Excellent. You talked about things like Python and SQL. Are those skills that you've been curious to acquire, or do you have teams of people that have those skills?
So SQL I have since learned. We have people who are way more data minded on the team. So we have like data analysts specifically and who are more on the Python side. I'll be
Right.
honest, it's not I would love to learn it. Right now my bandwidth is pretty tapped, but it's definitely a skill set you should have, especially going into it. I think I might have aged out of it at this point, but anything you can do to help better automate, make things more efficient and quick is definitely, it behooves you. So I'm not by any means bashing it. I'm just saying I don't want anybody in here that feels like they don't understand something to be intimidated and shy away from your passion.
And I think simplifying it, you've got the data gathering and you have the data visualization, which is where the story's at. So where does your role lie? Is it more on the visualization side then?
So sports teams run pretty lean. So it's all of it. It's gathering the data and visualizing it. Most people on the team so we have a data warehouse. A lot of the data that I work with, so I work more on the consumer intelligence side, which is understanding like the market research. I oversee our survey strategy, third-party market research and such. So whereas a lot of like the transactional data from our food and beverage or our retail or ticketing come into our data warehouse, so people like on the more data science side can just extract in and out of the data warehouse. A lot of what I work with is not in there, so it's a lot of manual pulling and pairing and piecing together from a lot of different data sources, which can be monotonous and tedious and time consuming.
Right.
But it's everything from that to then taking that, analyzing it, and then figuring out what the best visualization narrative is for it. We use Tableau. I mean, a lot of times I put stuff
Right.
together in PowerPoint. Excel is my best friend. Pivot tables are cool.
Yeah.
VLOOKUPs probably are my favorite equation. So, formula.
I think Excel, one of the things I've seen coming from Big Four consulting over the last 7 years and then my 25 years, Excel's still that tool that we see that every person gets a chance to maybe have an impact. But moving more towards that collaborative space, like using Tableau and having data warehouses, that's a sign of a maturing organization at the end of the day when we look at organizations. So as far as so you gather data, you have visualizations. What about the questions? How do you go about figuring out what questions you even want to answer?
So, part of my job is, I call myself the Katniss Everdeen of the people. So a lot of, the job of analytics is to help, how do we enhance, how do we drive more revenue? How are we, helping to make things more efficient in the business? But as somebody who's on the consumer intelligence side, I'm really trying to enhance the fan experience and make sure that we're doing what's right by our fans. So part of the survey strategy is, things that might seem boring to other people, but down in Tampa, there's a huge development happening right now, Water Street, with Bill Gates and Mr. Vinnick, and it's like a $3.2 billion investment, but it's happening right downtown, which is where our arena is. And there is, all these parking lots have gone offline, and there's street construction going on everywhere, which has really hindered the parking and traffic experience, which is at the end of the day, the first thing that happens when it's coming to the games. And last year we changed this past season, we went from 7:30 starts to 7 p.m. starts. So that's already, you're bumping them up on a weekday. Now you have all this traffic and construction. You have less parking lots. They're more expensive. So right off the bat, their fan experience is starting on a more sour note. So, we have worked really hard on the survey side to take their feedback and really implement it. We have not just internally, there's a weekly key city stakeholder meeting where, Tampa officials, the chief of police, all of these people are coming in and listening to the feedback from our fans to make changes. Simple changes based on like traffic flows going in and out of different parking garages and parking lots and putting more police officers in certain places to direct flows. So again, it might sound boring to some people, but like being able to watch the satisfaction over the season grow and certain things like that are huge wins for us. So those are the types of questions we're looking at. A big win for us, or for me,
yeah.
Food and beverage. I don't know, has anyone here been to a Lightning game recently? Has anyone here thought that the food and beverage prices were ridiculous? I probably shouldn't say that out loud. It's part of the team. But I mean, me too. Like, I don't even go, and I work for the team. Even when I get a free ticket, I'm like, I can't afford to eat there. So that's something that's been huge. So I think that we have like data that's internal. So it's the transactional data. And I think something that I've been pushing for a while is pairing that transactional data with the consumer data. Because when you have that transactional data without the insight of the consumer, you have half of a story. You don't have that full cohesive story. A perfect example was we switched pizza partners 2 years ago. And our CRO was like, hey, Allie, I want to hear all the feedback on this pizza partner. Can you put together a report? And I was like, yeah. I was like, without even putting it together, I can tell you they hate it. And he was like, no way, like, our numbers are up, like, it's the best sales we've had in forever. And I was like, yeah, because you raised the prices, that's it. I can tell you that because I've read the feedback. And he, like, didn't believe me, but I put together the report from single game buyers, from STMs, from our suites, and he was, like, shocked. And then what had happened was they'd raised the prices, but everyone was mad. Our STMs were eating it at, like, a 25% less rate. And so that's like where the push started. And I mean, I've put dashboards on dashboards together, and actually just on Friday, it was announced that we have implemented like a 15% drop across the board on food and beverage prices that goes into effect tomorrow. Some things are up to 29% off, and that effect will stay that is not a word, but
that's okay.
Whatever, I'm in math.
We'll make it a word.
It'll stay in effect through the playoffs. Anyone who goes to games probably knows every year we jack our prices for the playoffs. So, and that wasn't for any other reason than they're really listening to that fan feedback, and they want to get ahead of it. They don't want to wait until we're in a losing season to be like, oh, let's drop these prices. It was like, this is actually an issue. It's impacting the fan experience. Let's do something for the fans. So that was a huge win, and those are the types of questions that we look at to really see like where else we can impact that experience and make sure that we're having a lifelong fan, not just that tomorrow dollar.
Those are fascinating insights, and I think that customer experience and trying to understand and stay connected with your customer base is something every business is interested in, and there's a lot that even crosses industries. I want to just talk more about that process of how do you establish or set your goals when you're gathering that data and modeling your answer?
So a lot of that comes from, we do a lot of planning at the Lightning.
Yes.
We plan. So we do these things called 4-action frameworks with, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of those, but we do 4-action frameworks with different departments, and it's basically what do you want to eliminate, reduce, raise, and create. So when we started in analytics, the analytics department, actually, we roll under the CRO. So it was started as a department that was only supposed to service revenue-generating departments, basically sales and partnership. However, the adoption of analytics has really scaled quickly at the Lightning, which has been awesome. So now we're servicing everyone from community relations to the foundation to the operations team and everyone in between. So we're sitting down with all these teams trying to get their goals and then figure out how we can best service those teams. So a lot of that comes from those business planning meetings that are going into creating our business plans for the year. And then from there, for me, it's pretty easy when it comes to the survey strategy, figuring out how I'm going to build out those live reports on the back end so that I can find the answers that I need.
Okay, no, that's great. What type of challenges in your time there have you seen in gathering that data? You talk about surveys, so have you come up with challenges in the 4 years that you've had to overcome? Can you give us some insights into that?
I would say the biggest challenge is sometimes, honestly, it's having so much data, and you can almost go into data overload, and it's sometimes figuring out how to just hone in on what's important versus trying to capitalize on every single thing you have and just grazing the top of everything versus really drilling down into something, because there's a bevy of data out there, and if you're trying to tap into everything at once, you're going to really get to nothing. That's the biggest challenge, really, is data overload, bandwidth, and making sure that you're actually focusing on the right thing instead of just being fragmented across too much.
And I like those business planning meetings because that gives you an opportunity to align and make sure you're focused on the right initiatives as well. What are some of the, you've been with the Lightning for 4 years, so what are some of the other accomplishments that you're proud of in your 4 years there?
Some of the other things that I've gotten to work on, so actually as of this morning, we are now Vinix Sports Group. that's not what I'm proud of, but part of that is over the past few years, we've taken on other properties. So it was at first Tampa Bay Sports and Entertainment, ended up TBEP. So we took over USF Athletics, so selling their sports sponsorships and stuff. One of the things that we worked on was, so USF Sundome, we ended up doing the naming rights, which was sold as the Yingling Center. I worked on that asset valuation, so I did the naming rights valuation for that.
Okay.
So when that got sold, like that was really cool because that was like literally like within dollars and cents of what it sold for. So doing the naming rights for that, doing the naming rights for the practice facility that just sold. Our box office recently, the partner that had been on it for a very long time went off, and I did the naming rights for that, and it just sold. So like getting to do inventory valuations is really cool. Another thing for our partners is in hockey, like the traditional assets, which is like what sponsors sell, are the dasher boards around the rink. And so those typically, those are sold out for a long time because those are what everybody wants. It's the most visibility. It gets the most value on TV. So our partnership team always talks about not having any inventory and they have nothing to sell. So what's been really cool is bringing on new platforms, which that's been something I've been really proud of, is pushing and being able to justify the cost and need for these new platforms such as Blinkfire, which is a social media tool, and bringing on YouGov. So for anyone who knows about Scarborough, which is the most known third-party market research, I pushed for a year for YouGov, which is another third-party market research thing that we just got in January. But Blinkfire is really cool. It's a social media evaluation tool which actually puts dollar values on social media assets. And through that, I've been able to create new inventory opportunities for the partnership team that they didn't have before or see. I think a lot of times, not just our team, but a lot of teams always placed social media as kind of an added value. And that was what kept happening. Can you bonus us? Can you bonus us? And it was really frustrating our social media team because they felt like chop change.
Right.
And being able to bring this tool in showed them the actual value of social media, but then also just get more strategic with actual campaigns versus just slapping them on a post, but being like, hey, let's put you on a season-long campaign versus slapping you on some post and then showing the actual value.
So you work closely with your social media team? They're a separate team?
There's a social media manager. We like to call people, we're all teams of one and a half.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And you talk about being lean, so there's probably a lot of cross-functionality between people in your roles. So talk to us a little bit. What is a typical day like for you? So today, obviously, you're up here, but what would you be doing today if you weren't here?
What I love about it is that there's no typical day. I go in and it's different every single day. A lot of what I do is work with, I don't even know how to describe a typical or atypical day. So working with partnerships on upsells, renewals, bringing in new business, so many different surveys, building out different reports, sitting in different strategy meetings to brainstorm. It's so much different stuff across the board. I work in so many different tools each day that I don't even know where to start, honestly. It's different every day, which is
So you're
awesome.
never bored?
Oh my God, no. And if I always say this, like if I was to turn off my email and not get one more request, I think I would have a full-time job for the next 2 years. Like I would not, yeah.
So just to let the crowd know, what we're going to do is I've got a couple more questions I'm going to ask, and then I'm going to open it for question and answers. We don't have a mic, but what I'll do is when we get to question and answer, I'll ask you to raise your hand, I'll call on you, and then I'll repeat the question. So as I continue to ask a couple more questions of Allie, think about if there's some questions you want to ask, and then we'll open it up to you here in a few minutes. We talked about in the preparation just emotional intelligence and what that means with analytics and building intelligence. How important is it from your perspective to be thoughtful from what is emotional intelligence to you, and talk to the group about how you bring that into your day-to-day job?
I think EQ is incredibly important in analytics, and again, I think that's something that will really set you apart if you are looking to dive into this field. No offense to people in analytics. I think there's a lot of people with high EQ in analytics, but I also think that, again, it's something that can set you apart because there's a lot of people. I think the old school thought process is, I'm really smart, that's all I need, it doesn't matter. To me, I think it's not just being, it's being empathetic and also understanding the business needs of everyone you're servicing. So I think one thing that you should do if you're trying to dive into that space is get to know the business units that you're working with. A lot of times I've seen, they'll run a report, but they're running this report. They have no understanding of the department they're running the report for, what it entails. So all of these numbers can be wrong, but they'll have no clue, but they don't even think to ask the questions to understand it. I love getting to know the departments. We don't have game day duties as the analytics team, but I've shadowed the different departments, understanding their needs, just having a little bit of sympathy, empathy for those teams and the struggles that they go through, and just bringing a human element to the analytics, because without it, it's just numbers and it doesn't tell a cohesive story.
Oh, no, those are great points. And you mentioned early on that the Lightning, this was probably the first of a kind opportunity for the marketing intelligence manager. Have you been collaborating with other market intelligence managers of other hockey clubs?
I think that the first call that we had, I had just gotten off of the phone with the business intelligence manager from the Panthers. But I don't know if there's a market intelligence manager at any other club yet.
Okay.
But there's a business intelligence manager, and I have talked to, we went up to the Preds just to do a brain share with their analytics department and stuff. But again, like I said, I know that my role, the consumer and partnership analyst, was the first of its kind in the NHL, and now it's slowly starting to make its way into other NHL teams, and so that's pretty cool.
That's fascinating. I've got two more questions, and we'll open it up to the crowd. So you said that the other clubs don't have a market intelligence manager, which is who you are. They have business intelligence managers. So I know that a lot of the times when I'm preparing my messages and storyboards, I try to, in my mind, go through the thought, what's analytics and what's intelligence? So to you, what do those terms mean, analytics and then intelligence?
So I think that analytics, for me, and again, I've not Googled this term and I could be totally butchering it. I think analytics is the application of how you apply your research. There's research, but then there's the analysis and application of that research and what you do with it and analyzing it, and just kind of, it's what you've taken and applying it. And then intelligence is, for me, I guess, it would be the story that I come up with the analytics.
I love it. No, I think that's great. So two more questions. So I want to start, before I ask for wisdom, for a lot of the students out here are trying to position themselves for their careers, and sports is a business like anything else. And here we are, the College of Business, hosting the Sports Analytics Summit. We've got, this our first event, trying to think about what our next is. So we're telling a story today, but this summit will be a story that we'll build on for next year. So all that to say, talk a little bit about your storytelling process then. So if that's how you see the intelligence, you get your list of items, how do you start crafting that storyboard?
Oh man, so I start with everything. I pull in data from every single source, and I start like this and I drill down to this. I was also the kid though where it was you have to hit 5 pages. I was at 17 trying to drill it down. Like every other kid's trying to put in fake dots and periods and expand their spaces. I was the one that was crap. I can't get it down to 5 pages. I was always, clearly I'm a little verbose. So I never had a problem with that. So I will pull data from every single source, trying to figure out every story that could possibly be told, and then whittle it down until I find the most cohesive story. So I pull in from all the sources, and then I just try to drill down from there, and then it's trying to pull in what is the best visualizations to use, because it's just as simple as you can possibly make it.
Right.
And then I try to use as few words as possible, simple graphs, because at first, when I first started, it was I wanted to use the most complex graphs to look super smart, and then I realized I can barely read these. Other people certainly can't. So it's just crafting a very simple story that tells a very easy narrative with a couple bullet points to help move it along. The partnership teams really helped me with that, because when I first started, I was dumping everything on them, and now they're Allie, 3 points. But if they just want 3 points, I'm still pulling 97 points
Right.
to find the 3 diamonds in the rough. So
Okay.
I still pull it all in, and then I drill it down. That's my process.
Do you have people reviewing your work before you go back to the stakeholders, or is that just a part of that review process, what you just described?
No, I mean, maybe for like the first month I did, but no, I'm very fortunate in that people really, really trust me. I mean, we might go back and forth a couple times, but no, it's been a minute since I had someone review my work.
Okay, no.
That sounds terrible, but.
No, it doesn't. I think it just says, you talked about lean organization, and I know that.
I review my employees' work.
Yes.
I'll say that.
How many people are on your team?
I have one full-time person reporting to me, and then we have USF residents in their Vinnick sports program analytics that report into me, so they come in 3 times a week.
Gotcha.
So there's 2 of them on the analytics team. But our analytics team as a whole is 7, I believe, but
Right.
on the consumer side, it's just 2 of us.
And do you see that this is an industry that's going to continue to grow as organizations see the value in what you bring to the table, where they need to hire more of you?
Oh, absolutely. I've been trying to justify that headcount for a
We
little
want to
bit
help
now.
with that. Before I open it up, because we want to hear from the audience, let's talk to those that are either trying to position themselves for a career, or even people like me that have experience that are trying to figure out, do I need data scientists? Do I need this type of skill set in my organization? What kind of wisdom do you have for, talk to the student first about they want to have a career maybe and follow in your footsteps, and then maybe talk to the executive that might be out there about the value of what you do.
Okay, so my first piece of advice that's a little more broad is, and I will tell this to anybody, especially as a student, I feel like you will get so much advice, and you will have so much conflicting advice. I think about this because I get residents who will come to me and show me 3 different resumes and be like, which one do you like the best? And I will always say this, and this is please take this with a grain of salt too, because again, I'm telling you, you get a ton of advice. Because I know that they have professors that are like, call until they answer. I can't stand that, but I know most people love it. But then there's the other person that's like, do this, do that, and you're getting conflicting advice. You're being told to have a resume that looks like this. You're being told to do this. You're being told to do that. I always say this. I would rather not be hired for who I am than hired for who I'm not. So at the end of the day, with all the advice you're getting, try and make sure you're staying true to who you are. Like, don't deviate too far from who you are for the advice that you're getting, because it's not going to be authentic and it's not going to be you. And like, maybe that might sound like bad advice, but my resume was a what's not to do guide. I had hand-drawn X's and O's to look like a playbook. I had red, I had my name in bold, and I don't recommend that, but it was me, and it felt right for me. And had I not done that, I wouldn't have felt right. And so just my first piece of advice is, for all the advice thrown at you, make sure you're staying true to what feels right for you, because otherwise, you might take the conflicting advice and not get the job and then regret it because you really wanted to take the other advice, but you didn't because you listened to that person. So that's my first piece of advice.
Okay, good. And my question was, because this is my last one before I give up control, so now talk to the executive that you would want to make an appeal for. This is a good investment to bring in intelligence and analytics.
Well, I can't imagine a company not having it.
Yeah, but the Lightning 4 years ago didn't have it, and they
That's
decided
true.
to have it. I don't know if you have insights into how they created that position, but.
So I think that just to make business decisions in this day and age, it's justifying the cost could be, I think that it's talking to the person who wants to make the plea to their company to do it, and I would just say, try and showcase an example of justifying that cost. And even if it's the advice I got once when I was trying to bring in Blinkfire, for example, and my boss was like, no, we don't have the budget for it, was my mentor was like, look, I've done this. I've gone to a vendor and been like, can you give me a trial, please? If you give me this trial and I can prove this, we can bring you in. So it's like, even if you're just trying to justify the cost, if you can get a vendor to give you a 1-month free trial on something, and you can showcase one ROI, and then you're able to take that to your boss and just showcase one case study on how doing this one thing was able to, even if it's just if it's for an operations and you're able to save X% of the budget, being able to showcase that and justify the costs on if you're operating and you're saving $500,000 in your budget and you're paying this person $40,000 to $50,000, like that justifies the cost right there for one person. So if you're able to showcase that, I would just showcase it as a trial.
I appreciate that. We talk business cases in a lot of our classes, and I've seen the value of it in my career. It's a fantastic answer. So now I'm going to move to the audience. So does anyone have any questions they want to start off the bat? Right here. Yes, sir.
You talk about your audience that's at the arena, that goes to the arena, but there's a much larger audience that's not, that's consuming sports, specifically the Lightning game, that is never there. What do you do to monetize that part of the audience and understand that part of the audience?
Let me paraphrase the question just so everyone can hear. So you talked about the difference between the crowd and then those that are watching it maybe on TV. And then how do you basically connect with that group and monetize it?
That's a great question. So that is one place where we struggle is the wrong word, but so for legally, we are not allowed to just go out and randomly survey people unless we have, if they've come to a game and we have all of the legalities down pat. Something that I should not be peeping out here, but whatever, here I go. We are in the process of exploring, it's been a long process of exploring a fan council where then we'd be able to capitalize on that. So we want to put in place, and we're trying to do it right. So it's gonna be a slow rollout, but so the fan council will entail people who are, STMs and attendees, but also trying to get that third bucket, the people who are not attending but are Lightning fans, and then being able to bring them in so that we can have this panel of people that we can go out and ask the questions and get the actual like fan-to-fan questions that we can ask them. That's all I can really say for now on that part. Other than that, all we can use market research right now, and then that's about it for now, but that's a great question. And it's something that we've thought about a lot, and that's a place where we struggle just based in legality of where we can and can't go. But thank you for asking.
Great question. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, Allie, when you look at analytics just even 10 years ago or Moneyball and how data was derived to making sure to make better decisions, right? So when students now look at analytics, what are some skill sets to bring that left brain and that right brain together to be able to tell that story, to understand how we can make sure that this data is something that's going to be beneficial for marketing ticket area to sponsorships, third parties. So what kind of skill sets would students need to focus on as they're going through making sure they can sell this data?
I would definitely say that to what you've just said about how to make sure that students have the right skill sets to monetize data would be understanding how to visualize data and understanding what visualizations make sense for what data sets, and also the actual storytelling with data part. So that's where I think, like what I was saying earlier, a lot of it falls short, is a lot of people can actually analyze the data, they can understand it, they can throw it into a table, and they can go talk to somebody else in analytics about what it all means, but they fall short on being able to take that data, put it into something simple, and then tell it to someone who doesn't get it. So it's like, for me, I work with the partnership team a lot. They're going out trying to sell it. They're not gonna understand a complex data set or even a table, and then they're not gonna use it. So that's actually, it's funny, because when I hired someone, we were doing so many surveys, and I was like, okay, I need them to do surveys in partnership. If they get the survey side, I can teach the partnership side like a breeze, because for me, it just came so naturally. I have learned the hard way. Apparently, it does not come naturally, So I would say that that's where they should really focus their time. There's a book called Storytelling with Data. It's less of a book, more of, it's great. It's all about visualizations, keeping them clean, and it starts with these cluttered ones and how you take stuff away. It's really great. It has so many resources in it. It links to all these different websites you can go to. I use it as my Bible, so I highly recommend it.
I have that book in my library too, and just for, we're recording, so just for process. So great question. It was around skills that the student needs for the right brain, left brain come together to be able to take the analytics and tell a compelling story. I have time for one more question? Yes. And I'm going to repeat your question after you say it, so hopefully I'll hear it well.
I know that the Lightning works really close
So the question is, Lightning works with USF. Are there opportunities for students in that area that maybe that go to USF? How do they get connected to the Lightning?
Yeah, and like what opportunities there are because of FSU students, so we don't have that close connection. How would we
And opportunities for FSU students as well. Great question.
So I know that the Lightning have there's an actual partnership there with USF. So part of it's that where the program, it's just, I think part of it's the proximity, and the partnership enables them to have their fellowships through multiple different properties throughout Tampa, Lightning being one of them. There are internships in the summer or winter. That is a great question. If after this I can give you my business card and give you a better answer to it, I'm not the best person to answer that. I apologize.
No, that's great.
People ops would be better with that.
No, that's good. Aaron, time for one more question, or we have to wrap it up? All right, we'll take one more right over here. Yes, sir.
So I know that you mentioned that your position isn't offered in the other 30 NHL teams.
It's coming, I think.
So that's the first part of the question. Why do you think it's not offered? And then secondly, what unique advantages does the Tampa market provide you with being able to fulfill your role compared to other?
So the question is, this is the first job. Is it coming? I heard that part, yes. And what was the second part? One more time.
The second part is like Tampa specifically. What do you think or what opportunities would you say that makes that unique compared to other markets?
So why did Tampa go first? What was unique about Tampa that created this opportunity?
So I think that part of it is just the NHL, I mean, the NBA is way further advanced in terms of when it comes to analytics, and there's just different leagues are at different places with this. And then when you have the original 6 teams, they're sold out of X, Y, and Z for so long, and their focus might just be more on the ticketing. And it's definitely coming. So next week, I believe, or no, in 2 weeks, at the first week of March, I'll be speaking at the NHL Business and Strategy Analytics Workshop. The league actually called me and asked me to speak because they said there's not a lot of clubs doing what you're doing, but they're all trying to get there. So it's just different people are in different places of that. I'm very lucky to be at a club that really believes in the value of analytics, and our owner, Jeff Innick, is phenomenal and invests in his people. So I think part of it really is just being in an organization that has a phenomenal leadership who believes in this and was willing to put that money behind it. But it is coming. So, I mean, I've seen it pop up. I've had other clubs call and ask how they can model it, and I'm seeing it pop up more. So it's definitely going to become way more prevalent in the future. So I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon.
NHL's asked you to come speak to their organization. That's super cool. I'm glad we got that last question in. Great question. Let's give Allie MacLeod a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.